Good evening, Zachariah Jackson, BASA News. I'm in Elizabeth, New Jersey with Salaam Ismiall. How you doing, Salaam?
I'm good.
Well, the 23rd of this month will be 35 years fighting for the people, basically civil rights fighting. And I guess what the people would like to know, who is Salaam Ismiall? What drive you?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm just a city boy, born and raised in Jersey City. From my parents from Mississippi. My mom and my dad from Mississippi. Born and raised there. They came to New Jersey to look for, like other people from the South, to look for better jobs and better way of being, to escape from Jim Crow. And so I took a third of my life and lived in Jersey, a good piece of my life, and lived in Jersey City. And then we came to Elizabeth, and that's where I started my craft, which originated from my mom. She was a social justice advocate back in the early 60s, late 60s. She started out as organizer with the National Council of Negro Women, and then she parlayed to a whole bunch of other anti-poverty groups. She was president of the Welfare Rights Organization. She was president of a local group in town in Elizabeth, and she became a household name, speaking out housing. She was the first African American to run for a citywide office. She ran for a city council at large. She didn't win, however, she maintained her status as a vocal voice. And out of 8 boys and 3 girls, I'm the only one that took on this task of being first a youth advocate, and then got involved in social justice through the then NAACP in the early 80s. And I springboarded my own organization, National United Youth Council Incorporated, which will be September 23rd, will be its 35th anniversary. So it's the birth of the organization. It was also the start of my actual parlay into the movement.
Salaam, in your struggle of fighting, do you get the support that you deserve? Do you get the respect that you deserve from the community?
Well, no, I don't get. I mean, I don't want to sound like Little Richie when he kept saying, you know, he created rock and roll, and nobody didn't want to recognize it. But there's one thing. There's one thing I want to say is that in this world of activism, there's a lot of things you're just not going to get. And that means you may not get the money, you may not get the fame, but one thing you do want is the respect. And you want as much support that you can get. But do I get all that? Particularly in my hometown, I heard the old saying is that you probably don't get so much in your own hometown, you may get it outside. But I try not to worry about that. My thing is to get the job done, as you know.
Well, you know, in activism, being an activist, you out here championing for people's rights and things like that. A lot come out of that. So some people get jobs, go to schools, and all these things. Right? It wouldn't be, you know, a fallacy to hand something back to help out. And it seems that most people that fight this good fight is not recognized and it's not economically supported.
I would say that's a good point, because people talk about the Dr. King and the Malcolm X and all these different folks that now being commercialized, but there's been a lot of Dr. Kings and Malcolm X that we never knew about.
That's right.
You know, if they was alive today, they'd say, hell no, I didn't do this all by myself. So there's been other folks that's out there have not gotten the recognition, and they have done a great deal of work. So this is a lonely, lonely world. I always tell people, the new activists coming up, I say it's a lonely world. You may not get a whole lot of recognition. certainly not going to get rich and famous. You better have your own business. Like I do my own consulting work. But I always say this. I always say that just be truthful in whatever you do and do the best you can. You're not going to satisfy everybody. Believe me, I got people out of these 35 years, there have been a few of them that I haven't totally satisfied one way or the other. People who I represented, people who I supported, people, organization you had got behind. And then there's some people just don't appreciate no matter what you do.
Right.
so that's the game. My organization, the National United Youth Council, is two parts. One is a social service organization, service our youth, our families, and then the other part is a social justice organization where we deal with the struggle of police brutality, whether it's housing, whether it's job actions or whatever. So for the last 35 years, we've been doing it, and we've been doing a pretty good job with very little money.
Very little money. But shouldn't there be a day that, with everything going on, the popularization of Black Lives Matter, popularization of people continuing to march over and over, shouldn't they set a day aside every year to show appreciation for the civil rights fighters?
That's a good idea. I mean, because there are, I can name a bunch of them here in New Jersey that do a lot of good work. I mean, Larry Ham,
yes.
People's Organization for Black, has been out there for a long time. James Carey, who I consider one of my students, he's doing a lot of work. He's been in Africa. And there's people in my home state who have been out there a while. And where they might have received some accolades, a few awards here, what have you. Generally, very little appreciation, and that's unfortunate because that's one of the reasons why a lot of folks don't take the activist role. They don't take the advocate role because they say, well, what's in it for me? What can I get out of it? And then people ain't going to appreciate me and what have you, so forth and so on. So it's a tough business, if you may. It's a tough business.
Well, with this 35 years and your maturity in this organization, what is next for Salaam Ismiall?
Well, I mean, look, I wanted two things, maybe three things. First and foremost, I don't want to make the mistake a lot of our leaders either made in the past or not making now. And one of the problems is, and I'm going to get to something that we are doing now, one of the problems I feel that people that have been in this thing for a long time on the leadership level is they haven't passed on the torch.
Sure.
Or they have not shared some of the wealth of their notoriety, some of whatever, on the experience or what have you. And I don't want to be that one. So, I mean, I'm glad I can say I have some people who will tell you that I'm their teacher, I'm their mentor, or what have you, and I try to keep that going. But my next chapter, and I'm going to announce it right now, is I'm in the process of forming an alliance called the African American Alliance. And the purpose of that is to bring in those organizations, not to control them, not to dispatch them, whatever, is to bring them under the umbrella so we can share with one another. That's something we don't do. And I don't understand it. We have organizations, whether it's NAACP, whether it's National Action Network, whether it's the Urban League, whether it's one group or another, and we're not sharing. Every now and then we'll come together for a march.
Sure.
But we're not sharing each other's talents, each other's ability. We're not supporting one when other groups are doing stuff. We're not partnering enough with each other. That's the stuff I want to hopefully change.
Let's talk about support. Do you think that the Black American community, is there enough Black American people aware that we should support and fight for our civil rights?
I think a lot of people know, because one thing, the stories is told rather you wait for Black History Month or whatever, the story is told all the time about our history, our social justice history, our history of all the different, the Malcolms, the Martin, and all that kind of stuff. But I think the time we live in now with social media
Sure.
and all this other stuff, people tend to take their mind off of a lot of this stuff. I mean, you look at the marches now. I've been doing it for 35 years, and there was a march held in New York City, 10,000 people.
Sure.
And I would say 95% of them was white.
Yes.
I've never seen that before in my life. And you probably will never even see it even if you go back in the days. You'll have some white freedom fighters, but never the numbers like that. And there's a good and bad in that. The good part of that, I'm glad we have some alliances of other groups, other nationalities, what have you. The bad part of that is I'm hoping a lot of us ain't just staying the hell home.
Sure.
And not
sure.
and not really
support.
not taking on these battles.
Okay. Well, I want to end this segment of the interview, and I want to come back with the importance of other minority groups coming in.
Absolutely.
All right.